to Talking Supply Chain. In each episode, top supply chain industry professionals and the nation's top thought leaders join host Brian Strait and share their unique insights to help supply chain managers stay one step ahead of their competition. This is Talking Supply Chain. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Talking Supply Chain podcast. I'm your host, Brian Strait, and I'm glad you have chosen to join us for today's discussion. Joining me today for the conversation is Shabbir Dahod, CEO of TraceLink, and we're going to be talking a little bit about AI. There's a lot of conversation around AI, but I think Shabbir brings a unique perspective, and I'm looking forward to learning a bit more about this transformative technology from him and kind of leveraging his expertise in the area. Shabbir, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Can we kick things off a little bit? Our listeners may not be familiar with TraceLink or yourself, so can you kind of tell our audience a little bit about you, your background, and a little bit about TraceLink and what you guys do as a company?
Yeah, of course. So I guess I'm a software engineer by training, computer science. So I tend to spend my time between the product team and customers and try to bridge between those two to bring commercial products to the marketplace. I've been doing it for, I guess, now 40 years. Initially, accounting packages for Mac and Windows. I grew up in the Boston area, then went to Seattle to work for Paul Allen at that time for about 10 years. He's the co-founder of Microsoft. There, built out a set of different products, everything from authoring packages, etc. Moved back to Boston and then started down the path about 22 years ago to basically digitalize the end-to-end pharmaceutical supply chain. And that then, started TraceLink. And TraceLink's focus is really on end-to-end digitalization of the pharmaceutical life sciences supply chain. And what entailed in that is the ability to basically integrate companies onto a network and then enable them to very quickly and efficiently share information about the movement of products and the financial transactions on an end-to-end basis across the whole pharmaceutical supply chain.
Yeah. Great. And from Boston, I'm from Rhode Island originally. I'm in Connecticut now, so I think we'll get along quite well here.
Great.
So
as long as you're one of those Boston people that's a Red Sox, Celtics, and Patriots fan, I'm all in.
We might have an issue then. I am Red Sox Patriots for listeners out there. Red Sox Patriots for sure. I actually grew up a Lakers fan.
Oh no.
In the Magic Johnson 1980s Lakers.
Oh, that's the worst
was my
one.
team. I don't know. I betrayed my Boston roots there, from that standpoint. But yes, definitely Patriots and Red Sox. So people can hate on me all you want for winning all our championships that we've won in recent years. So
Great.
I want to get into the conversation. I could talk sports all day with you, but you guys, your company TraceLink just held your own conference called FutureLink up in Boston. Can you share some of the big takeaways from that event that you came away with from the conversations that took place?
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so we've been in this U.S. supply chain. So oftentimes we have multiple different future links. So in the Boston one it's very much so U.S. oriented. We have one in Barcelona, and then we have in Mumbai as well. In Boston, it was actually a important milestone because after nearly 12 years, the industry is about to go live with end-to-end track and trace, where every product sold in the U.S. will have a unique serial number on it, and the information about it is being transmitted between supply chain partners all the way down to pharmacies to make sure the end-to-end supply chain is completely safe from counterfeiting and diversion. So this is something we've been working on for 20 years, and the industry in the U.S. has had a law that they've had to comply with. But what we really talked about is how to now move forward. Now that the U.S. supply chain is serialized and digitalized for all products, we now have the opportunity to actually leap forward because we're the only supply chain globally that has that level of capability. So we also introduced new products, and one of those products was Mint. And what Mint enables the whole industry to do is to layer on top of all the information about the movement of the product with all the different business transactions related to it. So this has to do with purchase orders, shipment notices, inventory levels. And now with those capabilities married with the track and trace capabilities, we're now able to derive much more business value beyond just protecting the the supply chain for patients. So this can enable us to do faster recalls, much more targeted, make sure that we have the right inventory in the right place. And so that was one product we introduced. We also introduced another product called Poet. And what Poet enables the industry to do is really collaborate on the processes that are associated. Oftentimes, these are people-to-people processes across the industry where they have to share things like batch records or shipment notices or certificates of analysis. And there's many, many, processes that are between people that are collaborating as they conduct business across the end-to-end supply chain. So those were our two major announcements. And then we also discussed the fact that we're working on AI and that we'll be releasing that by the end of the year, where we'll enable AI agents to reside as part of your workforce and be able to take on functions within the supply chain organization to be able to work on a continual basis and actually take on much of the mundane task initially, and then over time become even smarter to be able to take on more of the planning tasks, et cetera, within a supply chain organization.
So I'm glad you brought in the AI there. I mean, it sounds like you guys are really getting into this end-to-end visibility, but really like to the item level, right? I mean, not the visibility that we have now, which is, hey, a ship is coming or a truck is here or whatever. So as you incorporate the AI into that, that visibility component of it, what is beyond just, you know, identifying and collecting the information? What is the AI actually doing? How is that contributing to improving the orchestration of the supply chain so that you get that visibility and benefit from it?
Yeah, I think great question. So AI, obviously AI and machine learning is a very broad, domain of technology and science. But let's speak specifically about Gen AI or
Mhm.
generative AI. What's really valuable about generative AI is that it actually captures knowledge and understanding at both a macro and micro level to then enable the capability to actually take on functions within an organization. That's oftentimes what's termed as agentic. So what is that? How does that manifest itself? Well, it actually manifests itself in the fact that you can train and fine-tune an LLM, a large language model, to understand supply chain and to understand a specific platform like Opus, which is our core platform, which maintains all the information and all the different what we term as metadata about the information to actually perform functions. So those functions could be as simple as verifying whether the purchase orders that have been sent out are being accepted, acknowledged, whether the actual lead times that are created for those purchase orders are within the scope of what has been achieved in the past, whether the quantities are what have been determined based on analyzing the current amount of inventory you have, the actual rate at which it's being depleted. And so there is ongoing analysis that an agent can do, which is all part of the generative capability, and then it can propose actions. How much to order, when should it be delivered, if a particular supplier is not going to be able to deliver it on time, to actually determine if there is, additional suppliers or is there, a different result or impact of that may mean that maybe you shouldn't accept a customer order right now because you may not have inventory and you may get a failure to supply because you won't be able to actually deliver that inventory on time. So the agentic capabilities is a combination of knowledge about the supply chain. It is the ability to listen and evolve based upon events that are occurring in the supply chain, to be able to reason and to actually perform a function based upon the objectives that you give that agent.
So the agentic component of this, I mean, some of what you described there sounds like it's things that we already do, right, in supply chain. I mean, monitor,
Yeah.
suppliers and things. So what is the agentic bringing to it? Is it just the speed? Is it the ability to automate it so that the human can go do something else? I mean, what's the added value there
Yeah,
of adopting it?
yeah, so it's like anytime you do any form of digitalization, it's all around productivity is step one.
Hmm.
So now, human beings can be more productive because those things that are mundane and let's say rudimentary, that are things that can be described in simple work instructions, the computer can do for you because it's now more intelligent about doing that. So the first major benefit is productivity. The second major benefit is agility because of the fact, like what did I describe? I described about the fact that you can now have someone that's working 24/7 and have the ability to have digital information flows go through and the ability to react to it in a much, much faster way. So you achieve greater agility. And there have been studies done, like Stanford's done a study on what the impact of AI and specifically generative AI is going to be to supply chain. And it is going to be the largest beneficiary of generative AI because of both of these factors. On the productivity side, it's going to end up reducing costs. On the agility side, it's going to enable companies to be more effective and actually generate more revenue. It is one of the largest beneficiaries of generative AI that the industry, looking across industries, that has been identified.
Yep. Can I just as kind of an aside here and a question for you, because this was in the news this past week or so. I'm sure you saw it about Anthropic
Mhm.
and the testing that they did where the AI actually tried to, you know, deceive and blackmail an engineer during a test process, because the engineer had said, "Hey, we're going to shut you down," and the AI kind of. And I think that's the fear that people have, right? Is we give AI
Sure.
more power to make decisions and automate decision making. So, can you just to kind of address that and how is that being handled and dealt with in the
Yeah.
market as far as the fear that people may have that the AI is just going to take over and humans will be cut out of the loop altogether?
Yeah, no, no, no. I mean, obviously, if you have a very open-ended system with very open-ended, um, you know, you know, capabilities that you're trying to achieve, then you can, go off the rails in these manners. But for what we are doing, we are actually working with Claude and Anthropic's, LLM in a teacher model into Llama, which will then be the student, and then we are highly training it and fine-tuning it that's highly specific
Hmm.
to the supply chain and to our particular platform. So we're putting lots of guardrails around it. And so that, we are able to highly control the types of interactions that it will be involved in. And the way we are creating the agents is the ability to have them all be managed, meaning that agent will suggest, will make, recommendations, but humans will actually make the final decisions.
Yeah.
And so therefore it's more of an aid and assistant to drive productivity than to necessarily take over someone's job. I think back to, I'm an old guy, so I think back to the early days when, the first time, word processors came out and everyone said, oh my God, it's going to put all these, typesetters out of business. And in reality, what it did is made everyone typesetter, right? And so I think agents and AI is not going to put people out of business. It's just make us all really great at using these technologies and tools in highly specialized manner to really just, do a significantly more with our time and actually spend less of our time doing mundane things and more of our time doing creative and thoughtful things, which is really what humans are great at.
Yeah. And I think the guardrail component of that, as you mentioned, it is really important. And I think, and I mean, I don't know what Anthropic was trying to do specifically. My guess is they were trying to do this, right, to see if this would happen
Sure.
as part of this, right? And that's really important in testing process to find out these things because you don't want that to happen in the real world, right? Without any, so I mean, having the guardrails and knowing what you need to design the systems to do is really important so that the systems behave in the way that you want them to behave.
Exactly. And it's internally what we call that is verticalization.
Hmm.
And so there's different, dimensions of verticalization, right? So there's obviously the domain we're verticalizing into, which is supply chain. There's the types of tasks we're verticalizing into, which is very much so supply chain oriented. The personalities of the agents we're creating, which are very much so more of the mundane supply chain type personalities.
Yeah.
And so when you do that, then you end up constraining the actual, large language models into that verticalization.
Gotcha. Yeah. As we talk about AI in general, I think it might be helpful to the audience if they kind of hear some use cases
Sure.
as to where it actually is being used today. So can you kind of spend a few minutes and do you have some use cases you could share as to how it's impacting real-time decision making in the supply chain and that's probably specifically in the pharmaceutical supply chain
Yeah, it's
that you
still
guys are in?
early. I'd say that, most of the work being done right now because of it's a highly regulated industry. And
Yeah.
so, therefore, I would say that right now it's much more exploratory, than it is actually, in production. There, small things in production. But let me kind of paint a picture for you as to what happens in like a highly regulated supply chain, right? Every day you come in and let's say if you are a supply manager, your job is to see, okay, what's happening to my open orders, right? Where are they at? How much inventory do I have? What does the current demand forecast look like? And so the way, we envision a user coming in like a supply manager is that, they will have an agent that will have these objectives. And the objectives would be to, follow up on all the open orders and to determine if anything's going to be late or anything is there's any new information about it. So all those capabilities, which are basically in we term as work instructions, is what the agent will do for you, and you'll be able to see what the current status is, and the agent will be able to send you an email or a Slack message if there's any issues going on that you should become aware of. And so sometimes what may occur is that maybe you have a quality issue, and so that quality issue is then raised, and then it can automatically notify you, put the product on quarantine, and then notify not just you that may be responsible for the supply, but also notify others that may be dependent on that supply for a production run. And so just think of the normal things that people do. You can instruct and create, effectively work instructions, which is exactly what people in the industry do. They highly regulated, so therefore they have very much so mapped out and said these are the steps I need to go through in order for myself to react to this situation or that situation. And so the agents can take over those tasks for you and then keep you as the actual manager of the agent informed about it. There could be a recall that occurs in a pharmacy. Well, as soon as that recall occurs, there's a set of steps you go through. You look up how much inventory there is, who was it sent to, provide you with a report of that. These are things that you would manually do in a normal software product. The agent can do it for you and then present you with the actual results of that.
Yeah. And some of that stuff like the notifying the pharmacies, et cetera, I mean, that is an issue that exists in all supply chains, right? It's the communication component of a supply chain, right? And the collaboration, right? I mean, supply chains and they tend to be siloed and
Yep.
everybody thinks that their data, their process is unique, so they don't want to share it with anybody, right? So is AI is what you're describing, is AI going to be useful in facilitating better collaboration among the parties? And are there challenges that actually prevent this from taking place in the way
Yeah.
supply chains are structured?
Yeah, I see that the biggest challenge with supply chains is that they're actually not digitalized.
Yeah.
Well, we all, talk about the digital supply chain. We have, nearly 2,000 customers. Those customers range from all the way from, direct suppliers, contract manufacturers, 3PLs, wholesalers, pharmacies, hospitals, retail pharmacies. And it's shocking how much is still done in PDFs and email messages and WhatsApp notifications and different tools depending on where you are in the world. And in order for AI to be successful, we have to accelerate the whole process for digitalization. And that's why we introduced Mint, because Mint enables you to digitalize all those processes. And once they're digitalized, then the AI can actually be functional and actually the collaboration can be more effective because now you have real-time information flowing end to end. And that's the foundation. And so therefore, I would say that AI is only as effective as to the extent that you are digitalized in your end-to-end supply chain.
Yeah, I once had an executive a few years ago tell me that digitization is not the fact that you use computers,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. The PDF is not digitalization.
Yeah, yeah. You know, you guys are in the life sciences, the pharma supply chain, and that has very unique characteristics to it, and unique set of challenges. So regulatory and regulations is a very specific one, right? And very difficult at times to make sure you guys meet. So where does AI fit in that process? Is AI making that regulatory compliance component of the supply chain easier in any way? Can it make it easier?
Oh, definitely. You see, I mean, one of the key aspects of the pharmaceutical supply chain is that there are like good manufacturing processes, good distribution processes, and you as a company have to be very prescriptive. And that's what I talk about, like the work instructions, the prompters, the tracking of that information, the audit trails of it, the authorization model for everyone to be able to, who can actually approve? Do you have a trail of that approval? That is actually part and parcel of what you have to do in the end-to-end pharmaceutical supply chain, and it's all about patient safety. It's about the quality of the product and patient safety. And so therefore that's paramount. What that does is it does create a lot of, documentation and verification needs to occur and lots of people involved in doing that, especially when the supply chain, like we talked about earlier, is still not digitalized. So a lot of it's happening in paper, a lot of it's happening in human communication, and people are tracking, logbooks by, actual entries in paper books and so forth. And so what AI and the ability to digitalize the supply chain does is it actually takes all that cost out. There's about an estimates out there that 40% of the cost of actually distributing a pharmaceutical product is all these processes that you have to execute. And so that's the 40% I talked about earlier that's in the pharmaceutical supply chain that can be digitalized and made more agentic, and at the same time be more effective because humans make more errors, right?
Yeah,
So based
yeah,
upon that, you can just see that 40% shrink to 20%, maybe 10%. And then on the flip side, because of these cumbersome processes, you don't have synchronized real-time information on the end-to-end basis, and that prevents you to be agile. So therefore, pharmaceutical industry tends to maintain sometimes 6 months, 1 year, 2 years worth of inventory, and they're still out of stock in
uh,
many critical areas. And that's because they don't have the right inventory. And they don't actually, because it takes, 18 months to actually order the the API, which is the active pharmaceutical ingredient for that particular product. And so the ability to do both of those is really right in, within our grasp.
yeah. And there is as you noted, there's a lot of data that's generated in the pharmaceutical supply chain,
Yeah,
from what happens to the logistics and the manufacturing of the products to the end consumer, right? And the end customer, you and I, that go to the doctor and take medications and get prescribed prescriptions and things.
yeah,
Um, that part of that process, it's all part of this process. And with so much data and data privacy rules and
mhm,
regulations around customer data,
yeah,
um, what from an ethical standpoint or steps need to be taken to ensure that as we integrate AI into this process, that especially that end user data, that my medical records, right, are protected and my privacy is protected in this situation, because there were certainly bad actors out there that use health records to,
yeah.
you know, discriminate. So,
So the way we've approached it is that the AI has to be given, just like any other user, a authentication and authorization.
mhm,
And so what we've built in is the ability to have an assistant that can only have your level of authorization, or you can have an assistant with a much more limited level of authorization. And so therefore, the AI is highly limited into what you authorize it to do. And that authorization is down to what information it can access as well as what actions it can take. And so therefore you need the ability to control the AI just like you control any other user. And so that way then you have the protections that that you're able to fully manage at a corporate level.
Yep. If the AI can stop people from using the internet to diagnose their health problems, that might be good too. But
Yeah,
like, I'm guilty of that myself. So it's like,
yeah. I
no,
mean,
no,
it's a
I know
busy.
that this is what it is. This is what it is. I know this is what it is. So
Yeah, yeah, especially now with either ChatGPT or
yeah.
Google Insights, everyone's a doctor.
Yep. So I want to finish up with a kind of a two-part question here, just kind of as we look at the future of AI in the space. As you know, because you're in it, and as I know, and many of our listeners know, it is changing fast. And each year we seem to have a new term. This year it's agentic AI, I think we're dealing with right now. Like last year it was generative AI. I don't know what next year's term will be, but basic kind of a two-part question here. Maybe I'll start with the first part and let you answer that, and then get to the second one. But since predictive analytics has become such a big part of supply chain resiliency, right? And we need to know what's going to happen and what can happen and how to respond when it happens. Um, is our companies able to leverage AI going forward to look at this and help improve the resiliency? And then I'll let you answer that maybe, and then get to the second part of the question.
Sure. Yeah, it's all part and parcel of information, intelligence, and then generative, you
Yep.
know, intelligence. And so the way we view it is that obviously there's the fundamental core digitalization information, which is just, the movement of transactions and information that occurs. What machine learning and predictive does is it actually then analyzes that information, uses different types of algorithms to actually generate predictions.
Mhm.
And so those predictions, again, are not 100%. It's not like 100% is going to happen. There are, 80%. There are different limitations and there are different ways that, something called a confusion metric. So what's the actual recall of that versus what's the accuracy and what's the precision? And so what you need to be able to do is actually then have an AI which uses generative intelligence to be able to say, let me evaluate this prediction in the context of, what are its parameters, and then let me then look at the information I have. Again, this is what humans do, right? Humans look at these predictions, then look at other data, try to look at other trends that may be occurring, look at what my profile is on what's the cost of that product, what the actual competition is, and then provide recommendations for what to do based upon that. So that's where the generative part comes in. So you see these all like as building blocks that work together, right? The digitalization is the core building block. Then you see that the predictive is a way to enable to create some level of analytics and predictive, and then you see the reasoning capabilities of the generative LLM models being able to take both those pieces of information to achieve higher reasoning, which is actually taught to it through knowledge-based articles, etc., to teach it how to actually reason about these supply chain dynamics and financial dynamics, and then to be able to recommend what to do next.
Yep. And the second part of the question is really asking you going forward and putting your predictive hat on and your fortune teller, if you will. Um, do you see any new developments happening with AI in the near future? Obviously, widespread adoption is an easy one to look
Yeah.
at, right? But do you see any dramatic developments taking place in the near future with AI? Maybe it's like use cases that we don't even think of that could be potential. Is it kind of a change in the way AI interacts with systems or something, or what can change the status quo?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I kind of, again, I've been around many different industry, technology waves and so forth. I view this wave as fundamental as the introduction of the microprocessor.
Hmm.
So when you look at it from that perspective, like what did the microprocessor do? Well, it actually did logic, right? And then you were able to like leverage that as it scaled up, as it became more and more powerful, starting from the very Pentium chips of the past to where we are today. And so the power grew. So you can see that LLM power is going to grow.
Yep.
Then it became, applicable in many different vertical ways, right? Like think about your cars, think about your TVs, you think about, anything that you use now, there is a microprocessor in this. And now you can imagine that there will be intelligence that scales up and down to the massive, to the micro, that will be available in everything we do. And then I think the next thing we have to look at is the interaction models, right? So the initial interaction models that occurred in the initial applications are very textual based. You were writing DOS prompts and reading out directories that became visual and interactive. And I think that we're just at the cusp of that, right? I mean,
Yep.
how you interact with your computer is going to completely change. And what you think about, how you navigate objects and functions and search for things is going to completely change and become much more agentically driven.
Yep.
And so therefore your whole interaction model with, computing is going to completely change.
It's so funny. My wife and I have this dispute. I am perfectly ready for my refrigerator to tell me what dinner I can make with the stuff that's in it. She's not so sure she's ready for that yet. So,
Yeah,
okay. Thank you, Shabir. We're just about out of time. I appreciate the conversation today and the insight and the thoughts. And if people want to learn more about TraceLink, what would be the best way to get in touch with you guys if they want to get involved?
www.tracelink.com and reach out to us. And we're always eager to talk with customers and industry people to learn as much as we can from them.
Yeah. Great. Thank you again so much for the time today. Topic's not going away. It's only going to get bigger. So we probably have a chance to update this conversation in the future, I would think.
Hope so.
So, yeah. I want to thank my guest today, Shabbir Dahod of TraceLink, and all of you who took time out of your day to listen to us. We greatly appreciate it. You can find new episodes of Talking Supply Chain on scmr.com or wherever you get your podcasts. So be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, this is Brian Straight, and you've been listening to Talking Supply Chain. Talking Supply Chain is produced by Supply Chain Management Review and Peerless Media. You can find it on scmr.com, supplychain247.com, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcasts. For more information on this topic or to sign up for our weekly newsletter, a print or a digital subscription to our publication, visit scmr.com. We hope you will join us for our next episode. For Supply Chain Management Review, I'm Brian Straight, and thank you for listening.